Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, let's talk about KFC. KFC is the world's largest fried chicken fast food chain. It has over 10,000 restaurants worldwide. The KFC logo, designed with the image of Colonel Sanders, has become one of the most outstanding and recognizable brands in the world. The creator and tireless pioneer of KFC fast food restaurants can be said to be one of the most familiar American figures since President Abraham Lincoln. In 1890, Colonel Sanders was born in a small village in Indiana, USA. When he was 5 years old, his father suddenly passed away, leaving no property behind, only his mother and 3 children struggling to make ends meet. To make a living, he had to take on many odd jobs. During the day, he had to peel potatoes in a video factory, and at night, he continued to sew clothes for others. Naturally, he didn't have time to take care of the young children. Colonel Sanders was the oldest, so he took on the responsibility of caring for his siblings and easing his mother's burden. During the day when his mother was not at home, young Colonel had to cook for himself. After a year, he had actually learned to cook 20 dishes and became a renowned cook. At the age of 12, when his mother remarried, Colonel Sanders' relationship with his stepfather was not good. His stepfather often beat him when his mother was out. Colonel Sanders endured this life for 2 years. He didn't go to school until the 6th grade when he was 14 years old. He decided he didn't want to study anymore and chose to work. He wanted a change of environment. Colonel Sanders did odd jobs on a farm, and he wasn't happy. He also worked as a tram ticket collector, which he didn't enjoy either. At the age of 16, he lied about his age to join the army. But military life didn't suit him either. After serving for a year, he went to Alabama and opened a blacksmith shop. However, it soon went bankrupt. Afterward, Colonel Sanders worked as a locomotive fireman for the Southern Railway Company. At the age of 18, he got married, and just a few months later, on the same day he found out his wife was pregnant, he was fired. Next, as Colonel Sanders was looking for work outside, his wife sold all their property and returned to her family. At the age of 20, he worked as an electrician and operated a ferry. Later, he worked as a railway worker. He had many different jobs, but none of them were smooth. Then, the Great Depression began. Colonel Sanders didn't give up despite his constant failures. During this time, he studied law through correspondence courses and obtained a correspondence law degree, allowing him to become a justice of the peace in Little Rock, Kansas, for a period of time. However, due to financial difficulties, he had to give it up. At the age of 30, he worked as a salesman for an insurance company. Later, due to a dispute over bonuses with his boss, he resigned. Some people told him to accept his fate and that he would never be successful. However, he wasn't ready to give up so quickly. At the age of 31, he taught himself law and started working as a lawyer, encouraged by friends. But during a trial, he got into a physical fight with one of the parties involved, and at the age of 32, he was unemployed again. Life was very difficult during that time. At the age of 35, he was a tire salesman. One day, while driving over a bridge, the bridge collapsed. Colonel Sanders and his car fell into the river. He was seriously injured and nearly died. He jokingly said that it seemed he couldn't work as a tire salesman anymore. It's true that sometimes great misfortune can lead to great fortune. However, in the following years, besides his optimistic attitude, Colonel Sanders had nothing. His final job was as an operator at a gas station, but the income was meager. He thought about making some extra money, and that idea led to the birth of the KFC fast food empire. At the age of 40, Colonel Sanders opened a gas station in Corbin, Kentucky. At that time, the United States was going through an industrial boom, building many highways, and cars became a standard for Americans. However, there was a big problem with road travel. There was no way to get a proper meal during long drives. Colonel Sanders, who thought he was a decent cook, decided to open a small restaurant by the roadside and sell food he made himself. Unexpectedly, the business was exceptionally good, and it kept growing. To maintain the flavor, he developed many exclusive recipes, but there was still a problem. Fried chicken was too slow to make, and customers couldn't wait. So, he bought a pressure cooker and reduced the frying time to 8 minutes. His restaurant quickly became popular in Kentucky. He had a large restaurant with 142 seats and a parking lot. By 1935, Colonel Sanders' fried chicken was already famous throughout Kentucky. The governor of Kentucky, Ruby LaFoon, officially awarded him the title of colonel, thanking him for his special contribution to the state's cuisine. So, people called him Colonel Sanders. However, his fortune took a severe hit in 1939 when World War II broke out. Gasoline was rationed, and Colonel Sanders' gas station was forced to close. So, he focused on running the restaurant and borrowed a large sum of money from the bank to expand its size. Unfortunately, just as he invested all his money and effort into it, a highway planned to pass right through the middle of his restaurant. The sudden change pushed Colonel Sanders to the brink. All of his investments evaporated in an instant. To pay off his debts, he even used up all his savings. Colonel Sanders, the once respected colonel, suddenly became a poor man with nothing. By this time, he was already 60 years old. All he could rely on was a monthly relief payment of $105, but that was not enough to sustain him. Colonel Sanders contemplated how to escape from this predicament. The most valuable thing he had was his fried chicken, a massive intangible asset. Suddenly, he remembered that he had sold the fried chicken recipe to a restaurant owner in Utah. That owner did well with it, and several other restaurant owners also bought Colonel Sanders' fried chicken seasoning. They paid him 5 cents for every chicken they sold. In his difficult situation, Colonel Sanders thought maybe others were doing the same. So, Colonel Sanders embarked on his second entrepreneurial journey. He set out with a pressure cooker and a 50-pound seasoning barrel, driving his old Ford. Dressed in a white suit and wearing a black bow tie, with his white hair and black-framed glasses, he, the Southern gentleman in appearance, stopped at the door of every restaurant. From Kentucky to Ohio, he taught the secret recipe for fried chicken to restaurant owners and asked them to perform a demonstration for him and their staff. If they liked the chicken, he would sell them the franchise rights, provide the seasoning, and teach them how to make it. At first, no one believed him. Restaurant owners even thought he was wasting their time. Colonel Sanders had a tough time with publicity. For 2 years straight, he was rejected 1,009 times. Finally, on the 1,000th visit to a restaurant, he received a good enough response. Once one person accepted, more people started to accept his idea. In 1952, the first authorized KFC restaurant in Salt Lake City was established, marking the beginning of franchising in the world of food and beverage. What surprised even more people was that Colonel Sanders' restaurant business grew like a snowball. In just 5 years, he developed 400 chain stores in the United States and Canada. In 1955, Colonel Sanders' Kentucky Fried Chicken Corporation was officially established. At the same time, he accepted an invitation from a Colorado television station to appear on a talk show. Because he was busy with work all the time, he could only find one clean suit, a white lady's suit. He put on his old black-framed glasses and appeared in front of the public. The image of Colonel Sanders, the Southern colonel who cooked fried chicken, quickly attracted many reporters and TV hosts. At nearly 70 years old, Colonel Sanders was surrounded by people clamoring to collaborate with him and buy franchise rights. He built a school to teach these restaurant owners how to manage a franchised fried chicken restaurant. In 1964, a young lawyer named John Y. Brown, only 29 years old, and a 60-year-old capitalist named Jack Massey formed an investment group that was deeply impressed by Colonel Sanders' business. They wanted to buy the business for $2 million, a substantial amount at the time. Although Colonel Sanders was reluctant in his heart, considering that he was already 74 years old, he eventually agreed and handed over the business to the next generation. In 1968, young Brown and capitalist Massey spent $7 million advertising Colonel Sanders and the KFC fast food restaurant. As a result, the annual total sales exceeded $700 million. 3 years later, with Colonel Sanders' approval, Brown and Massey sold this potentially boundless business to Hoobline, a food and beverage company. This time, Brown received $35 million in cash and stock, and Massey received a little more than Brown. As for how much Colonel Sanders received, apart from the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, no one knows. But according to related information, between 1964 and 1971, during these 8 years, at least 125 restaurant employees and salespeople became millionaires. The company's stock price skyrocketed from $15 per share to $500 per share. Among those who benefited were company employees and miscellaneous personnel who worked diligently for the company. Although the KFC business continued to change hands, the franchise operation method remained unchanged, and his image as the Colonel in a white suit, with white hair and black-framed glasses, always had a smiling Colonel Sanders. Although Colonel Sanders sold all his proprietary rights, considering his tremendous reputation, these new owners specifically paid him a lifetime salary to continue serving as the spokesperson for KFC and promoting it widely. He had to travel about 250,000 miles every year. Colonel Sanders continued to work tirelessly in his business, despite his age and wealth. When people asked him why he still worked so hard, Colonel Sanders replied that people who rust from idleness are more numerous than those who wear themselves out. Finally, Colonel Sanders passed away in December 1980 due to leukemia at the age of 90. His story tells us that if we encounter setbacks in life, as long as we don't give up, life can become beautiful. That's it for this episode. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Hit the bell button so you won't miss our next video. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next episode.